During the First World War, around 100,000 Germans of Jewish faith served for Imperial Germany. Around 12,000 of them never came home. More than a century later, some of those men are still resting under grave markers that do not show their proper religious identity. At the beginning of June, I was invited by the German War Graves Commission to film a Operation Levi event at the German War Cemetery of Consenvoye near Verdun. Operation Levi, carried out by the German War Graves Commission in cooperation with Operation Benjamin, is working to identify German Jewish soldiers who were mistakenly buried under crosses and replace those markers with Stars of David. This is not about glorifying war. It's about restoring identity, correcting the record, and remembering these men truthfully to who they were. Here at the German War Cemetery at Consenvoye, Operation Levi is taking place, where the German War Graves Commission is going to give the proper identity to German Jewish soldiers who fought during the First World War. I'm going to take you guys with on this video, show you some impressions of this fantastic event, and we're going to talk a little bit about why it's important and the immensely amazing work that Operation Levi and Operation Benjamin is doing together with the German War Graves Commission. Let's go and let's see what we can learn. At this ceremony, several headstones were changed from Latin crosses to Stars of David. Each stone represents one man, but together they also represent a larger forgotten history. These were German soldiers of Jewish faith who served during the First World War, died in that war, and were later buried or marked in a way that did not reflect their religious identities.
What is the importance of today? To replace the headstone of a Jewish German soldier of the First World War, when it's a Latin cross with the Star of David, is not just an administrative act or something that you do for protocol purposes or similar things. It is restoring the religious identity and also the dignity of a German citizen, of a Jewish patriot of Germany, and also that of a comrade. Especially because I have served 40 years in the military, it hurts to see that soldiers are not properly buried. And that applies to all armies in the world. So whatever phase in history it was, whatever happened, at the end of the day, they paid the ultimate sacrifice. And they don't need to be glorified, they don't need to be heroes, but they should be buried properly. And for Jews, this means the Star of David on their grave.
How is it possible that so many of these soldiers ended up under the wrong markers? During the First World War, many soldiers were first buried close to where they fell. Some lay in battlefield graves, others were buried in field burial grounds, hospital graves, or smaller military sites near the front. After the war, especially in France, these resting places were scattered across the former battlefields. Many of the smaller German burial sites were later dissolved, and the dead were moved into larger military grounds. During that process, original grave markers could disappear. Records could be incomplete, and religious identity could be lost or simplified. The German War Graves Commission explains that especially in France, Jewish grave markers were often replaced by crosses during the confusion of post-war years. So, in many cases, this was not one single mistake. It was the result of wartime burial, post-war reburial consolidation, temporary markers, and records that did not always preserve who these men were. And once that identity was lost on the grave marker, it could remain wrong for generations.
I'm very thankful for the work that the organizations like Volksbund and Operation Benjamin do. It's important memorial work to educate future generations in the name of peace and in the name of humanity.
So Operation Benjamin is an extraordinary initiative to do justice to Jewish soldiers who fought in different armies in World War One, in World War II as well. We're here now in a German graveyard, German cemetery from World War One. Yesterday we were in an American cemetery from World War One. To recognize the fallen Jewish soldiers who were buried mistakenly beneath Latin crosses are now being rededicated under Stars of David. And it's deeply moving. I think it's rectifying an historic wrong and acknowledging the sacrifices of these young men for the countries that they loved.
The most important thing for me is that we work on reconciliation. We work not with declarations, we work with actions, coming together with those who need our reconciliation with regard to the back and with regard to the front, to the future.
More than 107 years after the fighting of the First World War ended, these men are finally being remembered more truthfully. This ceremony could not change what happened to them. It could not undo the war, and it could not undo the decades in which their religious identity was missing from their graves. But it did correct something important. Because a grave marker is not just a stone, it tells the visitor who someone was. These men were Germans of Jewish faith. They served for Imperial Germany under the Kaiser. Many served the country they called home. And after more than a century, their graves now show that truth. And that matters, because remembrance without identity is incomplete, and reconciliation can not only be about nations, it has to be about individuals, about names, about faith, about giving the dead the dignity of being remembered as they were. At the beginning of June, I was able to witness one of those ceremonies depicting this correction, not as a political symbol, but as an act of remembrance, responsibility, and reconciliation. I also wanted to take this moment to personally thank the German War Graves Commission for inviting me to witness this ceremony so I could see with my own eyes how reconciliation is still being worked on over 100 years after the conflict. If you found that this video added some historical or important context, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel so we can continue learning together, but also take a moment of your time to research the German War Graves Commission and these important projects as Operation Levi or Operation Benjamin to help restore the religious identity of these individuals. Thank you for watching.